Hello and welcome to The Master's Voice, the podcast series on Mediabrief.com. I'm your host and friend Pavan Chawla. And with me today is somebody who is really a young master, a leader in the space of media and entertainment at EY India. Please welcome Ashish Pherwani. Ashish, thank you for joining us and for being on the show.
It's great to be here, Pavan. Awesome stuff.
Thank you. So, Ashish, before we start this conversation, I would like to, just inform everybody, especially the younger people, the real, freshers who may not have heard too much about you, sort of introduce you to them. So, Ashish Pherwani. Ashish is the EY India media and entertainment leader and brings more than 20 years of experience serving companies in all the M&E subsectors. Ashish focuses on consulting strategy for the media and entertainment space, and in his more than 2 decades of experience, he's been associated with more than 50 media companies across TV broadcasting, TV distribution, radio, content production, out of home, mobile, events, print and gaming, and more. He also teaches media trends and concepts to students across universities and to professionals at EY. And of course, Ashish has also been a mentor and coach to not just students and to the teams at EY, but also to every media person, however senior, with his insightful strategic thinking on all matters pertaining to the business of media and entertainment. So Ashish, welcome to the Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com. This is indeed a huge day for the M&E industry in India, which according to your EY report release for the year that was, actually went back 3 years in 2020.
Firstly, thanks for having me. And secondly, you make my career sound a lot better than it is. I wish it was as rosy as you made it out to be.
And Ashish, you're on record as having said, and I quote, with 1 billion Indian screens to serve, the opportunity to create global content and support creators with India's talent, production, animation and VFX capabilities is enormous. So let's quickly look at the top line findings of the latest FICCI EY report on the media and entertainment industry in India. And if you were reading an English news bulletin on the M&E industry in India right now, what would be your top headlines from the report?
The report that we released with FICCI today is a very interesting report because firstly, we did it during the lockdown. And normally I go and I have 70 cups of chai with 70 CEOs. This time I missed all the chai. I just got them online on Zoom and Teams and so on and so forth. But the findings were surprisingly, what happened. But going forward, what we're looking at is quite different. So yes, we went back 3 years in terms of revenue size. We dropped to 2017 levels. But I expect that we'll be almost back to 2019 calendar year numbers by 2021, this year, provided there's no lockdown. So there's a lot of resilience. It's very interesting. When the economy grows X%, media grows 1.5x. But this time the economy dropped 8%, we did do 24%. So it's actually a 3x drop. And that just shows the nature of the industry in the sense it's very discretionary. But it has the power to bounce back. And I think that's the main thing that we are actually seeing. But it bounced back in a very different way. And some of the trends, which we'll talk about later, will come from there.
Right. And the creative economy is poised to double by 2025. That's what Sanjay Gupta, chairman of FICCI Media and Entertainment Committee, has said in this report. So just give us an overview. You said the Indian M&E sector fell a lot, and in fact, it's fallen 24% in 2022, INR 1.38 trillion. So in this, which were the main verticals that fell? Was probably obviously due to advertising. And then which were the ones that sort of held their own ground and have, done really well? I'm sure digital is part of it. So how would you sum up the various parts of it?
Let me give you my top 5. Okay. One, the only sectors that grew were digital. And there also the growth was led by OTT, which grew 49%. And the second sector that grew was online gaming. Despite all the bans coming in some of the states, I think real money gaming is still poised to grow. That's point 1. Point 2 is that obviously all the sectors which involved getting out of the house were impacted. So whether it was radio, which has a lot of listenership in transit, or whether it's out of home advertising, whether it's films and events, right? All of these would obviously get hit, and they've been hit between 55 and 68%. So obviously that's big. But the thing is that these segments will bounce back, because it's not like we're going to hopefully sit in home the rest of our lives. We want to go out, and we go to malls, we go to cinemas, we're seeing the crowds back. Subject to no further lockdowns, I think these will bounce back very quickly. The third is that different sectors will take different times to actually bounce back. So while we're seeing that music, TV will bounce back very quickly, film, within a year or two, these will be back to normal. Some other segments like animation and VFX, events, etc., will take slightly longer, because when you've lost half your size, it takes time to actually grow up again. And I think the other message that we're getting is really the message is the massification of TV, where you're seeing a bit of the top end, a couple of million homes less in terms of the pay universe, as people move to OTT, move back to their villages, etc. At the same time, you're seeing a big growth of free dish at the bottom. Right? So 40 million plus homes now on free dish is the estimate. Recent auctions talk about massive prices being paid for all those frequencies as well. So you're seeing TV become genuinely good, solid mass product. It will grow, but you lost a bit of the top and you lost a bit of the bottom pay level as well, as both those segments have grown, which actually puts print in a very good place. Because where will you get all these top-end customers from, right? Because the top-end guys are watching SVOD with fewer ads. Good place to catch them is either in transit media at the airport or in the newspaper, right? Or in podcasts. So again, a lot of how all this kind of moves together when you're talking about TV getting massified, but there's a lot of ancillary opportunities for growth coming out of that. And maybe the last thing, good headline message, is the growth of advertising on e-commerce platforms. We've always had search, social, etc. We've always had a good amount on the OTT platforms, but this time we kind of sized the industry about 3,500 crores of advertising spend on e-commerce platforms, driven by a number of brands that increased their digital channels due to the pandemic, right? So all FMCG now start selling on 10, 14, 20 platforms online, and obviously there's ad spend supporting a lot of that. So I think overall, I would say these are some of the key findings from my perspective on this report.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for the very insightful, very nice, crisp overview, literally like a bird's eye view. So, Ashish, the one most important, one of the pillars, the one that actually brought in a lot of optimism and, brings in hope also for the future, and which is actually poised to take India's market in the sector share in the world and make it the 6th largest, is the OTT space, and 6th largest potential to be in the world for India on OTT is by 2024. But the big problem that I see is on the regulatory side. Okay. So do you want to give us a little bit of your views on the regulatory updates across the sector of media and entertainment and its subsectors? I mean, I see that OTT, if the creativity in content is questioned or is sort of fettered, okay, that will happen if OTT platforms do not work and self-regulate with full responsibility. What is your view on good quality regulation that would have every media vertical fulfill its responsibilities first to its creative ecosystem, to the creative content economy, and most important, to the most important stakeholder, the viewers, and through them, the society of India? What is your advice to the government? And I know now more than ever before, and many professionals and experts in the space agree that the government really needs to listen to experts on this and make sure that the media and society all progress nicely without any fetters. So, it's maybe an idealistic, perhaps slightly utopian statement, but it's definitely worth striving for. Your advice, your guidance to the government and to the professionals.
I've always believed that self-regulation is the mechanism for media. I've never believed in anything about that, and I stand by that. But having said that, I don't see the government actually saying don't have any kind of bad language or nudity or anything. I don't think they've ever come and said that. What they've really come and said is rate the content and build in controls to make sure that only the right people see the right kind of content which is meant for them. I don't think they're going on and on about censoring stuff. I think where the government is and where industry is are actually two sides of the same thing. The industry wants growth and they don't want curbs on growth, obviously. What the government is saying, we still at the same time want to protect the interests of our people, and at the same time, business has the freedom to grow. So I think what's required is something in between the two. And I think that's the fine line that the industry will eventually balance out on. And, OTT is so small today and there's so much scope for growth that personally, I think it's just going to, there's just so much going to happen over there. It's going to open the field up for so much more creativity. It's going to open the field up for so much more experimentation on genre and on type of storytelling and on overall, making it interactive and experiential, that I think these matters will eventually slide by the way. And I think India is just on the cusp of some phenomenal content production that's going to happen. Ourselves, we are seeing next year, we should see 500 original titles on OTT. It's a huge jump. Right? We had 220 this year and a pandemic struck here. We still had over 200 titles coming out on OTT. We'll cross 500, we'll cross much more and head towards at least 3,000-4,000 hours of content in a few years. So all that content is there. I don't think anyone is saying don't do it. Both the government and industry have to kind of work together on this. And I personally believe it can be achieved with self-regulation and a little control.
Wonderful.
You're tuned to The Master's Voice, the podcast series from Mediabrief.com. I'm your host and friend Pavan Chawla, and with me today is Ashish Pherwani, leader media and entertainment at EY. EY has released with FICCI its highly anticipated annual report on the business of media and entertainment in India for the year 2020. And that's what we're talking about. We're taking a short break. We'll be back soon. Don't go anywhere. And we are back. I'm your host and friend Pavan Chawla from the Master's Voice podcast series from Mediabrief.com. With me today is Ashish Pherwani, leader media and entertainment at EY.
Ashish, a lot of people have been saying that, OTT is eating into television. But I honestly feel that television still has a ways to go, and maybe for at least the next 5 to 7 years, it will be the firmly ensconced number one vertical in M&E. Because if you look at it, 197 odd million TV homes in India out of maybe Nielsen's guesstimate of 325 households totally. And so it's really a ways to go. And with each household potentially adding 4.4 or 3 individuals, 4.4, 4.3, it's a huge number. Smartphones are also growing definitely. And where do you see this TV versus linear broadcasting television versus OTT race? It's definitely going to add to the ecosystem. But between the two of them, by when do you think, if you think so at all, will OTT overtake television in India?
I think it's not at all. And I've heard this from so many of the people I interviewed this year. And I think they're both very different products. And they both will definitely both grow and coexist. I don't see it as an or, genuinely. Certain segments will prefer OTT, certain segments will prefer pay TV, certain segments will prefer mass TV, certain segments will prefer content coming bundled with their data, some will prefer signing up individually. I think when you have over 1 billion people, you can't really say that one product will work and one will not work. You will see all of these products and they will all have their own way of growing. They all have a very different path, if you ask me. Right now, we've seen a lot of English television audiences move to OTT because the offering is more recent. English TV's viewership is down to less than 1% of total TV viewership in 2020, right? But viewership on OTT is so much higher. That audience is getting fed with high quality international English content, and that's available on OTT at a time, place, etc. when you want to watch it and what you want to watch, right? And therefore, that's one type of segment. Now, there's another mass segment which just wants to sit back and be fed what it wants. You've seen channels go back on free dish and you see how their viewership has increased several times over, because of the reach that it generates. There's all kinds of audiences, the lean forward audience, the lean back audience, the guys who are willing to pay less, not pay. And I think there are going to be products for all of them. And because there's still so much scope to grow in this country, as you rightly said, 200 million versus 300 million homes are just covered. There's still 100 million homes, and even if you say half of them are below poverty line, there's still 50 million more homes, right? And for people, that's 200 million more audience size waiting for it. It will happen. It has to happen. TV is just so intrinsic. Entertainment is so intrinsic. The mobile phone is everywhere. Some may go directly on mobile, some may go on television. I think you'll see it all happening.
You're tuned to The Master's Voice, the podcast series from Mediabrief.com. I'm your host and friend Pavan Chawla, and with me today is Ashish Pherwani, leader media and entertainment at EY. EY has released with FICCI its highly anticipated annual report on the business of media and entertainment in India for the year 2020. And that's what we're talking about. We're taking a short break. We'll be back soon. Don't go anywhere. And we are back. I'm your host and friend Pavan Chawla from the Master's Voice podcast series from Mediabrief.com. With me today is Ashish Pherwani, leader media and entertainment at EY.
We spoke about India, we spoke about where it is at right now, M&E, and how it's sort of poised to bounce back and grow. What about some key global M&E trends? Because the M&E sector is evolving at breakneck speed. So, the important numbers, the important data that you might want to, the infographic headline figures, if you want to call it that. Mega trends, global.
I think India and global, some things are common, some things are quite different. In a number of countries, developed countries abroad, which are richer with high per capita incomes, you've seen digital actually overtake linear, but that's not the case in India. Linear is still way ahead of digital in this country and will stay that way for some time. Having said that, when you look at the global markets, you will see that, for example, streaming revenues have picked up significantly in many international markets. We are still a country which has not started paying a lot for audio streaming. Maybe that's something that will take some time to happen, but again, is expected to happen. Streaming video, we've started in a very good way. You'll see that again, if you look at the US, they have far more audiences now hitting streaming than ever before. So do we, and we will keep growing as they are growing. More content driven on the digital side than the linear side. In many cases, we are getting there too. There's still some ways to go, but that will happen as well. And content production budgets will also accordingly keep increasing. And of course, cinema's footfalls, probably coming down in some of the larger markets. But I think in India, there's just so much scope for that to grow. Just 100 million people enter a cinema in a year, apparently, in 1.3 billion. So there's a whole scope for a tier 2 cinema product, which has not even been experienced right now. And I think there's, again, a lot that will happen in that space.
And what about print?
Print will stay in India, much, unlike what's happening out there. The physical product, the community product, the bundled physical plus digital print product. Again, these are very interesting trends from an India point of view, which not always get reflected by what's happening globally. And I don't see that as a problem, in terms of growth over the next few years for them as well. So I think it's very different markets. In some cases, it's very similar trends in some cases. Sector by sector, we'll have to see how that pans out. But overall, I think when you look at it and you look at India and you see just how under-indexed we are on advertising, 0.31% of GDP in 2020 was our advertising spend. That's really small for a fast-growing economy in the top 10 economies in the world. Right? And that can only go up. So there's a lot of headroom for advertising. There's a lot of headroom for subscription. And so overall, that's why we're putting our money behind what we say and say the industry will double by 2025. well. We are looking forward to that.
Lovely.
And the numbers from your report, M&E sector, global mega trends. US dollars 840 billion will be the total media ad spending worldwide in 2024. 27.5 billion USD combined spent by Netflix, Amazon, Apple on content in 2019. In 2024, global digital video viewers will surpass 3.5 billion. In 2023, global gaming market will reach US $200 billion. In 2024, subscription OTT video viewers will surpass 1.9 billion from 1.5 in 2020. And the last number that's really also very interesting is that in 2021, 27% internet users in the US will be using ad blockers. And then, cookies-based marketing is dying out also, but that's a whole new chapter. Ashish, before I sign off, thank you very, very much indeed for being on the Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com. You brought in a lot of insights. And I promise you that I will come back soon, maybe in a couple of months, and we'll do a nicer deep dive looking at every sector, every vertical in the media and entertainment industry. And I want your word for that.
Happy to chat with you anytime, boss.
Wonderful. And I want you to tell me which are the OTT platforms you have on your phone that you watch.
Almost all.
No, not as a student of the space, but
I honestly have, I think pretty much all of them, not just as a student, because content is available that is great on everything. My cricket fix on Hotstar, great movies and global content, Netflix and Amazon, and even Lionsgate now. Great content there. I even do a lot of YouTube, for music. So I'm pretty much, sorted.
You don't stream? You don't stream music?
To.
What about the Ganas and the sound?
Oh, yeah, of course. I have Amazon Music, which is something I use a lot. And I do have, so my music is for me YouTube and Amazon Music mainly. But I also have Ghana. Really, it's a good question. I don't know when and why I actually go and listen to each of them, but somehow I managed to end up using all of them.
Wonderful.
I probably need to live to 500 to be able to see all the content that's available on all of this stuff.
Too many series, too little time. Let's change it to today.
I must admit that content is really, really exciting now.
Wonderful. Thank you ever so much, Ashish. Thank you for being on the show and for all the insights, for all the wisdom, the guidance that come from all the experience that you bring to the table. Thank you very much indeed. Any thoughts on the conversation we had so far?
Nothing. My thanks, Pavan, Mediabrief. The Master's Voice podcast is always good to hear. Take care.
Wonderful. Thank you ever so much. Ashish Pherwani, my dear friends, the EY India Media and Entertainment Leader was my distinguished guest on this episode of the Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com. I'm your host and friend Pavan Chawla. I truly enjoyed that conversation, a lot of insights. And yes, look at it with reference to the massive 300 plus page report that FICCI and EY have come out with on the Indian media and entertainment sector for the last year. And I hope that you actually find this report extremely beneficial, looking at the year that was and the years that lie in front of us. So till we meet again in the next episode of the Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com, this is your host and friend Pavan Chawla saying thank you once again to Ashish Pherwani for being on the episode. And thank you, my dear friends, my listeners, for being on the latest episode of the Master's Voice on Mediabrief.com. Till we meet again, stay safe. Bye-bye.